Welcome to Spyder Auto's headlight installation guide for the Nissan 350Z, and this is for the HID version of the car. Before we get started, we recommend you have a few items on hand. A panel popper tool, a 10mm socket and ratchet, and we also recommend that you have some blue painter's tape on hand or masking tape to mask off edges while we're working on the bumper. Let's start by opening the hood. Along the top edge of the bumper, there are 6 plastic fasteners that you'll need to remove, shown here. Use the panel popper tool to remove them. Now let's move underneath the front bumper. Under the front bumper are 12 10mm bolts that'll need to be removed. You can't really see them while it's on the car, so we've removed the bumper here to show you where they're located. Here are all 12. And that's all 12 of them. Moving back to the wheel well, with the retainers and 10mm nuts removed, now we can move the fender liner. Push the fender liner aside for clearance. Inside the fender well here at the fender bumper joint are 2 10mm bolts that'll need to be removed before proceeding. With the first 2 bumper fender bolts removed, let's take a moment to tape off the edges of the bumper and fender that may rub with either masking tape or blue painter's tape. Continuing, there's one more 10mm bolt inside the fender that we'll need to remove. Remove all 3 of those bolts on the other side. Now we can separate the bumper and the fender. Work the bumper free so that you can remove it, and then set the bumper aside. After removing the front bumper, remove the impact absorber. With the impact absorber removed, now we can access all the bolts, including this 10mm here, remove this 10mm bolt here, remove the third 10mm bolt here, and finally remove the last 10mm bolt located here. Repeat the process for the other side. Now, unseat the headlight. Work it forward enough so that you're able to access the wiring harness on the back side of the headlamp. Disconnect the wiring harness as shown here. Just disconnect the harness and the headlight should be free. Before we install our new headlights, we'll need to transfer a few components from the original headlight to the new one. Start by removing the bulb sockets as shown, turn signal, side marker, and so forth. And then disconnect the ballast harness. And go ahead and release the ballast harness retainers as well. Then remove the access cover from the headlamp. Now you can see the igniter and other harnesses inside the headlamp assembly. Disconnect the wiring harness. Slide the gray connector free as shown here. Now we'll remove the 3 ballast retainer screws from the underside of the headlight using a Phillips head screwdriver. Now on the underside there will be one more ballast harness screw actually on the underside of the ballast itself. You may need to use a small screwdriver to disconnect the ballast harness from the ballast itself. Now you can remove the ballast. Work the wiring harness boot free and begin working the harness free of the headlight. Take note of the position of the harnesses. Now we'll begin feeding the harness out of the headlight assembly. Follow along as we feed it free. As we feed the harness out of the light, you'll come across this white connector here, With a green and black wire, press down to disconnect the harness. With the harness disconnected, it's now completely free. And there you have it. Now we need to grab the ballast igniter pack, twist it free and remove it from the headlamp. Feed its harness out as well. Now, release the HID bulb's retainer clip and remove the HID bulb from the assembly. With everything removed, you should have a spread of parts much like this. We have the ballast, the screws, the igniter pack and its harness, the bulb, and the harness itself and your new headlight. Remove all the protective seal stickers from your new headlight. Now reinstall the turn signal bulb as shown. Now we'll need to remove the 4 HID cover screws. Use a Phillips head screwdriver to do so. Now with the HID access cover screws removed, and now reinstall the HID bulb into the projector housing. After securing the bulb, reinstall the HID bulb retainer. Now we'll need our original wiring harness with the blue insulated section of green and black wire. Feed the wiring harness into the new headlight as shown. Feed the wiring harness into the new headlight through the grommet hole as shown. After feeding the harness through, find that same white connector that we disconnected earlier. See this black guy here? Now connect the two of them. Feed the connected harness into the assembly. Now we can go ahead and reinstall the sealing grommet as shown here. Be sure that this is tight, otherwise condensation inside the headlight can occur. Now reinstall the igniter ballast on the back side of the headlight. Feed the harness in first, and then go ahead and secure the box section on top of the bulb itself. With the harness fed into the light assembly, now we need to reinstall the cover panel. Line up the HID box cover panel, and then go ahead and reinstall the 4 Phillips head screws that secure it to the assembly. Now locate the side marker bulb socket as shown here. Now take the LED socket insert and connect it to the side marker bulb socket. Make sure to align the black wire on the harness with the black wire on the socket. If you reverse the polarity, you could blow fuses. Be sure to insert the side marker socket fully and twist it into place for a tight seal to prevent condensation problems in the future. We'll get to this relay box and the red and black harness leading out of it a little bit later. Before we continue, we'll need to remove the side access cover panel. Just pull it free. Continue feeding the harness into the headlight. This is why we needed to remove the cover panel. Now grab this harness connector and the blue section of the original wiring harness. Go ahead and connect the 2 black connectors to each other as shown here. Then just feed the remaining harness into the headlight assembly. Then reinstall the cover panel. Be sure it's secured to ensure a tight seal, otherwise you could suffer from condensation issues later. In the box with your new headlight, you'll find a round rubber O-ring much like this one. Remove the original ballast O-ring and then install the new one in its place before installing the ballast. Connect the ballast itself and then reinstall the ballast harness retainer screw. Secure it using a Phillips head as shown here. And then we can reinstall the ballast itself onto the assembly. Seat the ballast itself to the housing and align the screw holes. Now reinstall the 3 Phillips head ballast retainer screws as shown here. Now locate the relay box on the underside of the headlight and the black and red wiring harness leading from it. Connect the HID relay harness to the ballast itself as shown here, Then connect the relay harness to the high beams. And with that, we've finished transferring the wiring. Now to install our new headlights. Connect the new headlight to the factory wiring harness. After connecting the harness, seat the headlight. Now, to save you both time and headaches, test your lights before installing your bumper. Be sure all the functions are working properly before you reinstall that bumper. Check your connections if you're having any issues. Assuming everything's working properly, let's continue our installation. Reinstall this 10mm bolt here. Reinstall this 10mm bolt here. Now reinstall the 10mm bolt that secures the headlight to the front fender. And then reinstall the 10mm bolt that goes on top of the wheelhouse. And there we have it, all 4 mounting bolts. Now we'll reinstall that impact absorber. With the impact absorber installed, now we need to reinstall the front bumper fascia again. Seat the front bumper fascia as shown. Now reinstall the 6 bumper retainers that are installed along the top edge of the bumper fascia. As you may have noticed, our race car test vehicle is missing a few. With the bumper retainers reinstalled, now we need to reinstall the 10mm bolt that secures the bumper. Now we've got 2 more 10mm bolts to reinstall at the fender bumper joint. Repeat the process and install the bolts for the other side. After installing the bolts, now we need to feed the fender liner back into place behind the bumper. Now reinstall the 10 10mm bolts that are installed on the underside of the bumper in the locations shown here. Now we'll just remove our tape, and we're done. Yeah, buddy, you've successfully installed your stylish Spyder headlights on your 350Z. Now let's take a look at that cutoff line. Videography by Nitro Nick. Yeah.